Welcome to the Total Wireless Store, where total confidence awaits.
Music powers my morning runs, but data overages slow me down.
Don't worry, you got this with the Total Wireless Store. Just bring your number and get 10 gigs of lightning-fast 4G LTE data with unlimited talk and text for $40 a month.
I'd run to the Total Wireless Store right now for that deal, if I wasn't already here.
Data girl.
Discover the Total Wireless Stores and get total confidence. The latest phones, the best network, all at great prices. Excludes TracFone Wireless Inc. brand sports. $40 plan must remain active to keep bonus data after 12/31/18. Terms at stores.totalwireless.com.
John, just because it's summer doesn't mean you can sit around on your backside all day.
Skip.
You never take me anywhere.
Skip. Man, I'm telling you, go paleo. It'll change your life. Skip. Don't get stuck with sounds you don't want to hear. Get Spotify Premium free with Vodafone X Music, plus 20 gigs of 4G data for just €20 top-up. Fuel your beats with free Spotify Premium. Search Vodafone X to find out more. For full terms, conditions and limitations, including our fair usage policy, see Vodafone.ie.
Are you having trouble getting up in the morning?
Yeah.
Do you suffer from AM apathy or alarm clock anxiety? Well, then you should try McDonald's local breakfast platters. Wake up to sizzling Spam, juicy Portuguese sausage, fluffy scrambled eggs, and a side of rice. How's that for morning motivation?
Amazing.
Enjoy McDonald's local breakfast platters with Spam or Portuguese sausage, or get both in a local deluxe breakfast platter. Enjoy with a McCafe Royal Kona Blend coffee at participating McDonald's.
Welcome aboard, all you ground troops spinning around smartly on the planet, Mother Earth, Gaia, Sophia. This is TJ Morris ET Radio, and I'm your host tonight, Theresa J. Morris, on what we call the Cosmos Connection. Now, tonight I have my BFF out of Maui, Hawaii, Janet Carolesson, who has been co-hosting with me since June 6, 2012, and we started this TJ Morris ET Radio based on the fact that we were going to have a gathering of souls in the cosmic consciousness. So we call this Cosmos Connection. And Janet Carolesson also has a radio show on Revolution called Stargate to the Cosmos. She also has a website called Stargate to the Cosmos, and she has asked me to bring on one of her very good friends for years and years doing events. Now, Janet will come on in just a moment and introduce herself, but we're going to talk about Cosmos Connection and Stargate to the Cosmos and how we can bring people together tonight with Janet, the same project we've been working on since June 6, 2012, but we're going to call it Conscious Soul Energy, and we're inviting all of you, if you like, who we've got brought on tonight with Janet and me. We're going to add the power of three with a famous, well-known metaphysician. He's wrote several books. You can find them on Amazon, and we'll let him bring those up because he is a metaphysician such as myself and Janet. And you guys know I've been doing this kind of work since 1984, where we brought on Stephen Halpern, and we'll be getting him back on. But Janet has all types of people in the New Age community and the body, mind, spirit field. So she's getting together quite the cosmic consciousness group of people. And we're introducing Stewart Swerdlow to all of our friends, and especially my friends in the TJ Mars ET radio group. And we have made American Communications Online as a bona fide business. I've been with Navy Federal Credit Union since 1989. And we have ACO Network for all your friends out there in social media. And we're welcoming all of our UFO secret space beings tonight that work together with Janet and I. And we're going to talk about metaphysics, alienology, parapsychology, phenomenology, ufology, and storytelling with ace folk life and modern pop culture. But you know, Janet's been with us since 2012, and I'm going to bring on her, and then we're going to invite Stewart Swerdlow. I'm very honored to have him. I've never met him, never talked to him before. So it's hard to believe that Janet and I being friends for so long, I've never talked to him. Janet Carol Lesson, can you hear me now?
Hi. Yes, I can hear you. I'm glad to be on the show tonight. I'm glad we're able to do this.
It's raining and storming here, so I hope I don't lose the connection. Let's hope, folks, that we've got over 700 of these, so this is good, Janet. So tell me about yourself, just for the record, because you know this goes on YouTube. So let's get your name and your book out there, and then we'll talk about Stewart Swerdlow and his books as an author. Go ahead.
Okay, Janet Carol Lesson. I have a number of books I've co-authored and authored. The ones I'm focusing on right now are Dance of the Souls, Pierce the Veil. That's autobiographical. And I do research on the Anunnaki, ancient aliens, some modern aliens. And so I've got 3 books with Anunnaki in the title. Well, first of all, the precursor is the 4th book that my husband wrote alone, called Anunnaki Gods No More, and then we have Anunnaki Legacy of the Gods, Anunnaki. What was it? I forget the name of the one. Anyway, there's 4 of them in the series.
The Anunnaki series.
Yeah, Anunnaki. Marduk Anunnaki, King of Earth. And so we go through this information going back to the dawn of time. But one of our references that we've always gone to is Stewart Swerdlow. And I met Stewart Swerdlow. I forget what year we met Stewart. I had Stewart came over to Maui and presented at we had Stewart here at our house. We were doing groups back then, and I don't know what we had, 30, 40, 50 people crammed in our living room, and we did several different nights, and it was a huge success, and we really loved Stewart. But I remember Stewart said there's a lot of mind-controlled people programmed. Yeah,
yes,
that's probably right. That's probably right. Yes, yeah, the Hawaiian Islands attracts them. Anyway, it makes it fun. It's like living in Disney World. And then I met Stewart again somewhere in the last 10, 15 years. I can't remember what year it was. Stewart has a memory like a mind like a steel trap. He can remember everything. But me, I'm kind of like, that was somewhere in time. But we flew to Michigan, and he has a wonderful conference called Expansions and website. And we presented
really?
There.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we hung out.
He has his own conference? This guy has his own conference?
We talked to Stewart. Yeah, well,
wow.
I'm not sure what's going on with Stewart. I think he's expanded. His group's called Expansions, but I think he's... Well, let's, without further ado, because this isn't about me. This is about Stewart Swerdlow, and he's my dear friend.
And the Stargate.
And he's
and
coming on
Stargate
to the Cosmos. And the Stargate and the Stargate Cosmos Conference Expo is October 25th through probably it might be the 29th because we're thinking of adding intensives. We have a number of people that want to do longer workshops, so that's what they did at Contact in the Desert. They had a 4th day. Actually, it'll be a 5th day for us on a Monday, and I was shocked how many people were there. So I thought, people go home. But anyway.
Well, I've got 4 books pulled up that he's written. I've got 4 books here, Janet.
Pull Stewart
I've got them pulled up.
Let him talk about it. Okay, go ahead. Your turn.
All right.
Back to you.
Let me mention his books, folks, so you get an idea where this guy is coming from. Blue Blood, True Blood, Conflict and Creation. That is a book by Stewart Swerdlow, and I'm going to mention 3 others. He's probably got one. Folks, as writers, authors, we're always got another book coming. But he's got The Healer's Handbook, A Journey into Hyperspace. Ooh, that'll be fun. The Hyperspace Helper, a user-friendly guide. Now, I wonder what that's about. But it says it's by Stuart Swerdlow, and I can't read the little name under it. But True History. Oh, no, excuse me. True World History, Humanity's Saga. Now, it says that Stewart A. Swerdlow, with an A, is the author. Now, this is spelled Stewart, so I'll have to go back and fix my website, my radio. A, Swerdlow, and we'll make sure that's how you spell his name so you can find him. But this last book was written by, it says history is written by the victors, isn't that your truth? To control the billions of people on planet Earth, guns, weapons, and armies are not enough. The victors intend to control your mind. Free yourself. It's time you know the true history of such hotly debated topics as Atlantis and Lemuria. Ooh, some of my favorite. Most of us have past lifers, so we know about that. Nibiru, that has to do with the Anunnaki and the planet that's supposed to be out there and comes back around every 2,600 years or so. Sumer, Egypt, Lost Tribes of Israel, Ark of the Covenant, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, Emmanuel, Maya, Inca, the Cooper Belt. I thought we said Kuiper, but it was probably Kuiper, like he's got it. Templars, Papacy, Antarctica, Fourth Reich, Book of Revelation, extraterrestrials and aliens, interdimensional existence, and much, much more. So this should be a fun show to help us. You know, each person has their own story, and as Janet's always said, if there's 8 billion of us, there's 8 billion realities out there. So he may be able to walk the talk that Janet and I do, and that is traveling many multi-dimensions, but trying to stay logical. We call it balancing our minds, folks, trying to stay balanced and logical while you're out there running around at night, you know, living your body. So let me get him on here. I'm excited. Thank you, Janet. Let's see. Mr. Stewart Swerdlow, is this you, and how do you spell your name correctly? How are you?
Hello, Janet. Can you hear me?
This is Theresa, and Janet, say hi to Stewart. Hi.
Hi, Janet. Good to see you again, or hear you again. It's good to be on the show. Thank you, Theresa and Janet, for inviting me. And I guess you want to know how to spell my name. It's Stewart. And the last name, well, the last name is really a Russian name, but in the United States it's pronounced Swerdlow, but in Russia it's Sverdlov.
Could you say that again in Russian?
Yes, Sverdlov.
Sverdlov.
Yeah, and
does it
you might
Stewart the same? Stewart Sverdlov?
Yeah, that's just the American version. But some of your listeners may know about me. My great uncle was the first president of the Soviet Union. And,
oh my goodness!
His son, yes.
You're pretty Russian, aren't you? But you were born in the States.
Russian.
You're born in the States.
But, yes. Because I don't know.
Okay.
I'll explain. My cousin, or Yakov's son Andrei, was the one who created the KGB, and my other great uncle Benjamin Sverdlov created the mind control and programming in the Soviet Union. My grandfather Mikhail Sverdlov was sent to the United Kingdom to start the Communist Party there, and when he was successful, they sent him to the United States to start the Communist Party here. So that's how we wound up in this place. So that's a very short version of my
Well, how did you
background.
get
My
over
Uncle
here
Yakov.
from Russia? Can you tell us, did your mother or father come here? Or surely you've got half something else. Were they both Russian? But I'm very curious how you wound up in the United States.
Well, my
TJ,
mother...
Yeah, my husband is Russian on all sides. So anyway, so that's possible. But go ahead, Stewart. What about your family?
No, my mother's family is actually Romanian. And and so, you know, there's still a lot of communism there and so actually my great uncle Yakov was the one who ordered the assassination of the Tsar and his family in the city of Yekaterinburg in the Ural Mountains. And to recognize this, the Soviet Union renamed the area Sverdlovsk, which means the city or region of Swerdlow.
Wow.
So, so my family is very, very well known in Eastern Europe. It's plus and minus about that these days, but that's my general history background.
So your mother and father moved to the USA, or which one, or both? Because you were born here in Long Island, right? And you're 5 years younger than me. You were born 56.
Yeah, and I was actually born in the area of Brooklyn, New York, and then of course I was in 1970 because of my background. I was taken into work in the Montauk Project from 1970 to 1983. So that's a whole nother category of information.
I went there in '68, just so you know. Men in white coats. Probably different from the. We've had Preston Nichols on here with his story, Peter Moon, or at least So we know a little bit about that story. It got to be quite well known, and I looked into it because I'd been to Montauk. So you actually lived near there? Is that how? Because you were in Brooklyn, or did your family move to Long Island? Let's start there.
Yeah. Then when I was 13 years old, my family moved to Long Island. Exactly a few months before the Montauk Project began. And I was in that project for 13 years.
How old were you? 13 when you started? And did you go to Camp Hero, or that little, it was a little place with a, they closed it down. They used to let fishermen fish out there. Little bitty. Were you at the brick cement? I remember cement. A lot of cement, but that's about it. I don't remember a whole lot about it.
The base, what you may have remembered, was on the surface, but there were 9 levels underneath that. And the work where I was taken was in the underground area.
Now, was that through the Air Force Base? Because there was a Grumman place out there, top secret, where my husband's dad worked, because my husband worked at NASA and he worked at Grumman. But when I went out there, there was, when you went in a gate, there was, do you remember, well, you were 13, I was 16, so we weren't too far apart in age difference. But do you remember where the secret place was for Grumman right there? Was Camp Hero close to there or not?
Yes, it was within, I will say, 15 minutes of that location.
Wow!
But there were several entrances to the base. The Montauk base, the Air Force Base, had its own main gate, but there were also secret entrances from the town of Montauk and other locations at the lighthouse, and there were even entrances as far west as the West Hampton Air Force Base, which is still in operation.
Oh, well, I stayed at a house out on the island, and I've always wondered if the little boy I saw might have been Andrew Bishago. That's how I started researching Andrew's story, based on Stargate and also Pegasus. But I just started as an investigator and researcher trying to put the stories together and connect the dots. So Janet mentioned that you were part of that. So how did you get with your parents? Because I remember this little boy playing out, and his parents talked about how gifted he was. But when I went, I got sick as a dog in 68, 69. And, of course, they worked at Grumman, but I got taken out there, and I remember just getting sick and men in white coats. But I don't remember much else. I really don't. Remember
why
that.
Were you there, TJ? Were you
I don't
part
know.
of the time travel program, or?
I think it had to do with I was a psychic even as a child. So I remember I went out to White Sands, New Mexico, and had that, the UFO family, and then when I was 4. So I think it tied in because my mind remembers these little ETs or grays needing help, and they were behind this real thick glass and cement underground. But I remember the only visions I've got is men, and there were doctors in a white lab coat. I went into the Air Force Base with my family. They were instructed to take me there because Chris Kraft hired Steve out at NASA in Houston and his dad at Grumman. And so they transferred him out to Long Island to work on a secret space program on some aircraft, but somehow they knew I had ET UFO abilities, and they both knew it. My husband and my his father. So since I had psychic abilities, and I used to ask them about the ETs that I met all the time in White Sands, they were real interested. So I put my foot in my mouth, apparently, or either the ETs organized this, Stewart. I don't know. You may know more than I do. But I was part of something, but I have no memory other than the men in the white coats, the glasses going underground, and a lot of really thick cement. When I think of it, I think of these big, a room and lots of, like NASA, if you've ever been in NASA or seen the space station, a lot of equipment, and over in one left side, I'm pointing, but you can't see me, I'm pointing, Stewart. To the left was a room with real thick gray cement, like block, and it was thick glass, and one guy was really sick, and one was trying to communicate with me, and I can remember that. And I would tell them like a little kid, even though I was a teenager, what they were saying. So that's my only memory, Stewart. So what did you do? What was your part?
Oh, well, that's a very big question, Theresa. Well,
well, I can't remember most of it. That's all I can remember. So now what do you remember?
I know. Well, I'll tell you, Theresa, I know exactly what you were involved in because, and it's a complicated story, but what you were seeing were the survivors of a crash in New Mexico, which is a little bit different than the story we heard about Roswell. But this story actually took place in a different location, and these beings came from the Zeta Reticuli 2 star system, the ones that you saw, and they were trying to communicate back to their home world to be rescued. That's a whole
yeah, that's what
story.
It felt like.
Yeah, and that took place somewhere around 1965 when the rescue ship came, and then the United States government sent 13 people back with them, and that's a whole nother story.
I have no clue about that. Never heard it.
Is that the Planet Serpo project?
Yes, that's right, Jack.
Oh, it is.
Correct.
Oh, my goodness. This is wonderful. So did you see those gray aliens, or was that before you got there? Were they still there?
Well, because I was involved in 1970, and this happened in the 60s.
Right.
So that was a little bit before my time. But we learned about that in Montauk because Montauk, was involved in many, many different things. To answer Theresa's question, it was involving, of course, alien communication. It involved also what we called hyperspace language. It involved a sexual magic ritual, mind control programming, weather manipulation, esoteric weaponry. There was many, many projects that were going on at the time. And in the last 6 months, I have come into contact with a physicist from NASA who's actually French, but he worked in NASA for over 40 years. And he said to me, oh, yes, he knows very well about Montauk Project. And he said, believe it or not, they had things going on there since the 1940s.
Wow.
A lot of them. Mm-hmm.
So they really did have something going on time travel. Now, I don't know this for a fact, Stewart, but this is firsthand information. But my firsthand information is memories. But I always have been interested in time travel since when I was 4. I went up on a ship, and they said I had to stay here. So I felt abandoned on the planet. Ruth Montgomery called me a walk-in. And then after that, at third grade, I willed myself to White Sands. This is the short version. So I got to go over there to meet them again. It's like they willed me, and you can get into this if you want, but somehow I got to White Sands, New Mexico, Los Alamos. So I had relatives working underground at Los Alamos and on the testing missiles. So I knew about that, and I saw some there that came down on a spacecraft. They put my two cousins to sleep, 10 and 13. So I got to go on the spacecraft and sort of look around and be told there would be a school, and and then I got to come off. And then I lived my teenage life knowing that I could, I don't know if you'd call it time travel or have dreams, special dreams, or lucid dreaming, but I've always been different that way, and I always wondered if they all connected. So Janet and I have been working together all these years to put together. And so she told me that you may have something for me, because what we do is we're trying to connect the stories, finding a fact in balanced way that people can see it may affect them. So you understand then that some of these places, regardless of where they're located, they may be connected to military bases and corporate contractors. Is that what you understand, like Grumman or TRW?
Yes.
Yeah, let Stewart explain this. He's got the whole story. Go ahead, Stewart.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. But yes, absolutely correct. And I have to say, there are many, many groups we can't say when we talk about, and let me just, even before I even go into all of that, from a government legal perspective, there is a distinction between the word alien and the word extraterrestrial, because they're two different things. Even though people use them interchangeably, they're really two different things. From a legal U.S. government perspective, an alien is a physical being who comes from a physical planet within this universe. An extraterrestrial could be a borderline physical or non-physical being who may not necessarily be from this universe, but from a parallel, alternate reality. So we have to make that distinction when we use these words, because people may get confused about it. And that's why in the United States, it's illegal for a U.S. citizen to have unsupervised communication with an extraterrestrial, but it's not illegal to have communication with an alien, because an alien can easily be monitored, but an extraterrestrial may not be so easy to monitor. I just want to put that out there first of all, so we can understand the terminology. And that leads me to what happened at the Montauk Project and what we were involved in. And in the beginning, the U.S. was involved with many groups who were both alien and extraterrestrial, who claimed that they had certain abilities and technologies that they could exchange for ability to work and operate within the Earth's atmosphere and so on. Of course, we later on found out that they operated anyway, regardless of any agreements, and it was just really a deception on their part. But in Montauk, we were involved in, yes, time travel. We were also involved in understanding what they call the language of hyperspace, which is a color, tone, and archetype, which comes from a level beyond the astral planes that goes into a pure energy level, a pure mind, pure transmission, pure knowing, which they consider to be the level of the God mind that creates all things. So I was, my work was involved in basically learning what that meant, how to use it, what formulas you can create with it, and so on. Unfortunately, the government took that information and used it as a way to program and mind control people globally, because, and I'm sure most of the listeners know what the Illuminati are, the 13 families that control the planet. And when you are a relatively small group of people, and when I say relatively small, I mean, maybe tens of thousands of people, and you have to be in charge of billions, and now we're almost 8 billion people. Of course, weapons and armies are not enough because the 8 billion can easily overwhelm a few thousand, yes? And so the best strategy, and this came from the Nazis actually, is to mind control and program people into specific alters and functions that they don't question. And the mind, what we were told in the Montauk is that the best slave is the one who doesn't know that they're a slave. And unfortunately, that's where we are right now on this planet, where we have all these millions and billions of people who think they're free and they're not, especially in the United States and Europe. So there's a lot going on, and we're just now getting into what they call global rituals that the Illuminati have planned. For example, the staged alien invasion, the staged second coming of Christ, and so on. So we're at the very edge of this right now.
So what was your role, Stewart, at Montauk? You were involved with the time travel. Is it also teleportation? You can go to other planets, and there's the Montauk chair. Could you explain? Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Gee, it sounds like my ex-wife is over there.
She has a little yappy dog. You got to catch the mute button. Okay,
everybody should know that I have a strange sense of humor, and I'm not politically correct. So let's get that up front right now.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, and so to answer your question, again, I have to explain something scientifically, and that there is a difference. There's a difference between a wormhole and a vortex. Here again, generally people use these interchangeably, and they're not. A wormhole is a shortcut between point A and point B within the same reality, but a vortex is a shortcut between point A and point B into different or more realities. So that's kind of one of the initial things that we did at Montauk, was to map these connections or shortcuts within our own physical universe, as well as to other universes, whether they're physical or non-physical. We must also realize that some wormholes and vortices are natural. In other words, they occur naturally within the creation. But Montauk specifically was involved in creating artificial wormholes and vortices, so that there could be invasion forces and espionage and so on wherever they wanted to go. So that was one of the initial things we did, was to map the connections between point A and B in various locations.
So I have a question on that. If you have and then we can go back to your explanation. I was raised on, I think it was a vortex, because I kept getting ghosts and interdimensionals and extraterrestrials or whatever. They would come into my backyard, into my house, and I have witnesses that have seen it happen as well too. Is that was a natural formation? I think. Am I correct? And that was a vortex, probably going to other dimensions, other realms.
Were you near some kind of water, both either on the ground or underground?
The whole it looked like they were stepping through mirror, like water, like on Stargate. So when I would look at my neighbor's backyard, suddenly it would turn into water. And it was like it came through, and it freaked me out. And I saw them repeatedly until I was a teenager. And then I talked to my sister years later, and she said, "Oh yeah, I saw it many times too." So, apparently it was very real, whatever it was, and different beings would come through. She saw one with a top hat, like from the 1800s, so that might have been a ghost or something. I saw the Grim Reaper guy with the reptilian face.
Where was this? What location?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in a town called Avalon.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So that was near where the Susquehanna River and the Monongahela River all kind of converge in that area.
It was further down. Avalon followed the Ohio, so it was about 6 miles. 6 miles from when they all converged. Yes, it was on a waterway.
Yeah. So right. So that area, because of the convergence of those three rivers, and because, believe it or not, in that region just north of it is the extension of the St. Lawrence River Valley fault line that eventually goes through northwestern Pennsylvania and into Ohio and so on, which becomes the New Madrid fault line. And so all this electromagnetic energy combines to create a vortex. You're correct. And so that interdimensional entities or beings are able to pop in and out in those areas very easily. Yeah.
So here I am in Hawaii at the foothills of the West Maui Mountains, and I have over here there are 4 rivers that come down from the mountaintop, and I have a river that the stream part runs through my yard. And here we see, people that died from the wars with Kamehameha and all kinds of people walk through this property, and I have people come to me and they go, "You have ghosts on this property." I go, "Yeah, I'm living on a vortex. I always live on vortexes."
And if I remember correctly, Janet, when I was there, if you remember, they were seeing this Black Panther that would appear in that area, if you remember.
Oh yeah, the Black Panther, and they could say who lost the panther? Yeah, but they never found it.
And I kept thinking, oh my goodness, hope it doesn't come through the screen door in my room over there in your house.
Yeah, luckily they didn't.
Well, Stewart, how did you get into metaphysics? How did you get into metaphysics? Yeah, because we want to know how we all fit together for this Stargate. There's got to be a common thread, and my history was I was always looking for these people. I'm going to be honest with you, but they just come and go out of my life to this day. They've come to Gulf Breeze. So, how did you get into it? Did they visit you, or what happened? How did you get involved with other people?
So I wrote about this in my autobiography called Montauk Alien Connection, and which is available on my website. And that started when I was a child. I was like 2 or 3 years old when I was getting visited by these beings that were not from here, and taking to what I call space platforms and meeting with other beings and so on. And that led eventually to my involvement in the Montauk Project. So that is how I became involved in all of this. But even since I was born, and my birth is a very strange birth, which is in the medical books, and that is that I was basically implanted in my mother's womb even back then, and then I had to be extracted physically through surgery to get me out because she was not supposed to be pregnant. They said she couldn't have been pregnant. So I was an implant from the beginning.
How did your mother rectify that in her mind? I mean, now we look at it, we go, yeah, that makes sense. But back then, how did she resolve that in her mind? I'm pregnant, but there's no way I could get pregnant.
My mother was of the type that whatever the doctors would tell her, she just accepted it and believed it, and she didn't ask any questions. I also can tell you, and this is in my autobiography as well, that as a child, she would take me every week to a Victorian mansion for very brutal examinations with a doctor who I came to know as Dr. Mengele, who survived. Yeah, he survived the war regardless of what history says. And, of course, he called himself at that time Dr. Green, and that's how I knew him. And I actually had confronted my mother before she passed away about this, and she finally admitted that she did this. So that was actually a relief for me to know that she confirmed my memories.
So did you start using any powers you had? Because you're very metaphysical, and I don't know if Montauk has anything to do with me. I just know they were interested because I could read our head is psychic, or whatever you want to call this. I'd like to get into the consciousness error because the consciousness, soul energy, and the chakras and all that, that's so metaphysical and so body, mind, spirit, and I'm sure we all teach that because I was drawn into it, so was Janet.
Yes, of course. And if you look through my work and my books and my website, my video, you see that my work is about energy, color therapy, alternative healing, and so on. I actually have my doctorate in alternative medicine and deprogramming. And so that's really what my life work is about. And basically, we need to learn who and what we are, why we are in this particular reality, what we came here to do, and unfortunately, we need to also deprogram from the extensive mind control that pervades just about 100% of the Earth's population. Long time ago, the programming would be done physically through sessions and so on, but since the early to mid 90s, the programming has been done through satellite transmission, cell tower, microwave, even television and radio and so on. Any electromagnetic device can be used to program a person. So you could be having lunch, walking in the street, taking a nap, and you're being programmed. And so the work that I do is to teach people how to recognize the various programs that exist and how to deprogram from them. And I have 2 other books available. One is called 13 Cubed, which is about advanced deprogramming. And I have another book called True Reality of Sexuality, which is about the sexual magic ritual and the different frequencies that they use to mind control and program people. So I have a lot of extensive work out there.
Well, let me just share this with you real quick. When Preston Nichols was on here, I found out he was still using the vibra sound, which was used on me in Hawaii. It was introduced called vibra sound. I don't know if you're familiar with electricity and going back in time. But Dr. Laura Sturgis was paid because I was working for the government and the Navy, but she got paid to look into my history with extraterrestrials. She wanted to severely, and just kept bugging me about it. So Dr. Laura Sturgis is into all this. But we all thought she was weird, but we loved her. But she introduced me to the vibrosound and actually had some mind-altering trips, I guess one might say, during that time. So are you familiar with Preston Nichols and him? What we call Reiki, but he had hands-on. Are you familiar with his work at all?
Oh, I've known Preston decades.
Decades.
Of course I know him. Yeah.
Okay, so did y'all work on the same project, or he just interviewed you?
Well, no. He worked. I was with him in Montauk Project since 1970. I know him for 48 years, and same with Duncan and so on. By the way, yesterday was Duncan's birthday. And,
wow.
But
now, who's Duncan?
Duncan
go ahead.
Cameron.
Duncan who?
Yeah, he's the lead. He was the lead psychic in the Montauk Project.
Cameron Duncan. I've heard his name.
Yeah, and so basically, Preston was more involved in the technology. I will say oversight of the mechanics of all of it, whereas I was basically a very young person, and I was a test subject. So it was a very different category than Preston. And, of course, Al Bielek was in the administration of all of it. And so even though we knew each other then, it was under different circumstances than it is now. Time tends to equalize things a bit. Of course, Al is no longer with us. I speak almost weekly with Duncan and so on.
Duncan Cameron, not Cameron Duncan. Duncan Cameron.
Duncan Cameron. Actually, his official name is Alexander Duncan Cameron.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd love to talk to Duncan Cameron sometime. Maybe we can talk later about maybe doing a show with the two of you if you want. But I'm not pushing anything, but I'd like to. Yeah. Anyway, so maybe I'll explain a little bit more to TJ and the rest of the listeners about how all this. I read the book, so I haven't.
Okay. I don't know anything about these people.
I read the book, right? So let Stewart explain a little bit more to you, TJ, so you have an understanding, and then you can ask some questions because it was a very interesting story. Peter Moon wrote some of them, right? He was the editor or the co-writer or something. And I've talked to Peter a number of times, but Peter's talking about Bosnia now. So anyway, so go ahead, Stewart. Maybe explain a little bit more about what was going on.
Yeah, that's after I was there, folks. So my term was 68, 69, and then apparently whatever we were doing must have had something to do with what you're doing because it's all psychic and time travel stuff. So what did you do afterwards, and how does all this fit in with Duncan Cameron?
Well, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the powers that be were very concerned about maintaining their control system over the billions of people of Earth. And they did this over the decades by creating fear issues. You know, there was the fear of the Nazis, then there was the fear of communism, then they had, alien and UFO sightings that made people afraid. But they needed to have something to make people scared, because when people are frightened, it opens up the pineal and the crown chakra so that energy can be input and extracted at the same time. So that's why even today on the news we find hyped up information that makes people afraid and hooked onto the news, so that whatever CNN or Fox News or BBC tells them, they listen because they think that it's the truth. And then they become manipulated and like puppets to the programming masters. And that's what Montauk was about. It was basically about how to control a large group of people from a small group of people. They used the alien technology, but what they discovered as they were digging in Montauk, because let's have to remember that the Montauk base, or the Montauk Lighthouse area, they started building that in 1799. And that was George Washington commissioning this lighthouse with a small underground area for supplies in case the British were to invade North America. And over the decades and centuries, it kept expanding and expanding until by the 1930s and 40s, they had this huge underground base, including a submarine pen with an entrance that went out even into the continental shelf of the Atlantic Ocean. But as they were digging, they came across the top or peak of a pyramid, which they came to learn was actually from the Atlantean time period. And now here we need to look at geography and geology, and we know that the Montauk Peninsula is actually the top of an island chain or archipelago that extended through the Atlantic to what would have been Atlantis and what we would call the Caribbean region right now. So there was this extensive island chain of which Montauk was once a part. And underneath what's now been buried were these pyramids. And in the pyramid, they found Atlantean technology that they really didn't know how to use. And in fact, Preston Nichols was one of the people that was examining it to figure out how it worked. And I remember, oh my gosh, it was back in 1980-something, Preston showed me a huge crystal disc that he said came from one of the pyramid technologies underneath Montauk. Anyway, so I've heard it said over the years that the government was more interested in the Atlantean technology than they were in the alien technology. But I will tell you that eventually the Montauk chair, the technology that Duncan was used in, came from the Sirius A star system. They had the most advanced technology for mind control and programming, which they also had given to the reptilians or the Draco. So it gets very complicated because there were so many groups involved, and there were factions and factions within factions, and so it's quite a mess if you try to figure out, who is working with who and who's against who and so on. It's a very complicated field out there. It's not just one against the other. So I want people to understand that this is a very multi-layered issue that involves Montauk and even into the present day. And as Theresa mentioned earlier, you mentioned the Kuiper Belt, which I have been involved with, I'd say for the last 8, 9, 10 years. And that is a whole nother story, which is also a bit complicated.
Well, maybe you can come back and we can record that and have it where we can place it with whatever else we're building with Stargate to the Cosmos, because this is really about Stargate to the Cosmos and getting like-minded spirits to come together and share their story so we can see how they all fit together in the cosmic consciousness levels. I'm very curious to see individuals that are still walking and talking on the planet, how they work with their past life cells, their future life cells. And it's apparent that due to television shows that we're going into interdimensional travel and time travel, and there's even a TV show called Timeless right now. And then we have Donald Trump in office, who was, I guess you would say a reality show star person. But, the lighthouse you're talking about has 24-hour surveillance. It's supposed to go right to his cell phone. I don't know if you're aware of that. Have you heard about the Montauk?
Well, I'm going to tell you about him. And, I'm just going to say it, because as you know, I'm not politically correct. And quite honestly, I don't care what people think about me. But I just say what I know. They can accept it or reject it. But I will tell you that Hillary was supposed to win that election for the Illuminati, because whether people accept or not, they really don't vote for the president. The president is assigned, and the voting machines are programmed to reflect that decision by the Illuminati. So your vote really does not count. I'll just tell people that. But there was a sabotage, and Trump was placed in office, even though not many people voted for him comparatively. And so this was a Fourth Reich Kuiper Belt sabotage of the Illuminati. And so he is basically an agent for the Fourth Reich and the Kuiper Belt, which is why he is undermining and reversing all of the Illuminati programs. So people should be aware of that, and there's more of that to come. I will also tell you that the Illuminati are very upset about this. They're concerned about what's coming from the Kuiper Belt. But before that even happens, the Illuminati are creating or going to create a staged alien invasion where people will think that the Earth is being attacked by an alien race. This will be accomplished via Blue Beam Project, which maybe many of you have heard of, which is a holographic projection from the ionosphere that looks like spaceships are in orbit or there's a laser beam attacking, but it's really just an image. And then after that, they will bring in a savior race, which will be reptilian, and the reptilians will state that the humans on this planet are their descendants and that they are the parents of of everybody on this planet. And then ultimately, they will bring in a cloned second coming of the Christ figure who will declare the New World Order as his holy empire and create a New World religion. And then they basically will be wrapping everything up under one neat package. Now, that's the plan. But the Fourth Reich and the Kuiper Belt are doing sabotage on this so that it will not work out that way. So then people say to me, oh, well, then the Kuiper Belt and the Fourth Reich are helping us. And the answer is no, they are not. They really don't care about human beings. They care about controlling the planet. And out there in the galaxy, the Earth is comparable to Syria. What we on Earth think of Syria and the problems there, well, the Earth is a big problem to everybody out there. Humans are considered to be dangerous, volatile, and so on. There's many different races who feel humans should be annihilated. It's a very complex situation, but with the Montauk Project information, as well as what I know from the intelligence services, because of my family background and so on, there's a lot of, procedures and techniques and agendas within agendas that are happening, and nobody really knows what the outcome will be because there's so many layers active right now. But I can tell you that I think within a year, we will at least see some sort of a staged alien invasion. I think that's already in process. And then I think ultimately will be a real one coming. So it's going to be rock and roll, people, for a bit of time.
Stuart, does anybody love us out there? Is there anybody that speaks for humanity? Or do we just have these two factions that neither of which are really worth backing?
Well, it's interesting because when I was I was in Estonia, and in Estonia we asked the question, what was better, the Soviet occupation or the Nazi occupation? And the answer was, that's like asking if you want to have a stroke or a heart attack. What's the difference? And so it's the same thing with the Illuminati or the Fourth Reich. Their agenda is the same. It's just, who's in charge is different. And so to answer your question, does anyone love us? Yes, of course, yes. But I will state this categorically, and many people get upset with me for this, but there is no love, light, and peace aliens out there because the benevolent aliens do not interfere. They know that humans have to find their own way. Otherwise, they can't progress. The Chinese have a saying that if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. So the benevolent ones are allowing us to learn how to fish. They're not going to give us a fish, despite what New Age propaganda says. So, no, there's no one coming to save us. There's no space brothers coming to save us. Humans have to save themselves. Otherwise, it serves no purpose. Otherwise, you've learned nothing. Someone gives you something, you haven't earned it. And so the human race is in a do-or-die situation right now. And I've always said that the human species, by the way, the human species is an artificial race. We should not exist naturally. We are a synthesis of the reptilian and mammalian, and that's a whole nother story which you can read about in my Blue Blood book or my True World History book of how humans were created on this world. But it's artificial. And so we were created with a victimization mentality. And with a victimization mentality, you attract victimization, oppressors, and tyrants. So what I do in my work, my goal is to teach people how to remove the victimization mentality and replace it with something more beneficial so that we can attract a better life on this world. And I also use the analogy that thoughts are like film, the brain is the projector, and physical reality is a screen. So if we do not like the movie that's playing, we need to change the film, which is the way we think. And if we do that individually and collectively, then ultimately we can change everything that's going on this planet, and then the Illuminati and the Kuiper Belt and the Fourth Reich will not have to exist for us anymore. And that's my goal.
I like that. So there is a way out of this fine mess we're in. But it's
yes,
us.
Of course. Yes.
Good.
You know, it's,
well, I can wrap my head around that.
I mean, I don't know if any of you out there ever read The Lord of the Flies, which was required in high school. But
it was required.
Is that I have seen the enemy, and he is us. So
yes.
Yeah. So we can't blame the Illuminati, and we can't blame aliens, and so we have to say, okay, we must take responsibility for ourselves, and if we don't like what's going on, we're the ones that have to change it.
Right on, yeah. So that's what we need to focus on. It's empowering people to shift their perspective and change a new reality. I like that. So we'll be working on that at Stargate to the Cosmos and on this radio show. But thank you for that insight there, because I kind of got, I can make anything happen if I can wrap my head around it, right? You know what I mean? It's like I'm aware of my manifestor. And I have manifested some amazing things. But sometimes I get stuck between a rock and a hard place. And so there's very few people that can talk on the level like we're talking here and can help us get our heads out of it. But, I was aware of the two factions. And to me, like you said, do you want a stroke or a heart attack, right? I kept telling people, you're just voting for the two sides of the same coin. You're not going to get anything better with one or the other. And so thank you for putting it into words, what I've been trying to say. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah,
well, can I share, Stuart, while I've got you on, can I share with you what I have found out in my travels? I'm not sure where you get your information, but most of us channel it direct. But I had died as a child with hepatitis, and then again after I saw these beings I called angels, and then I died when I had my fourth child. So 2 times I've left my body with, being sort of thrown out due to death. So I always felt like I had an insight, and that's why the government used me. It was provable and verifiable. And then they had me come to Washington with my polygraph retina scan, psych eval, and believe me, they put truth serum in me. It wasn't much, but it was more than 2 cc's. I'd say about 4 cc's of the white milky substance that I asked about. But they had me doing a polygraph 2 days in a row, and I was just in tears. But they know I have this skill. But what I'd like you to know is when I did start doing an investigation, they brought me, I was in the Navy in Hawaii and did all my psychic training, and that's how Janet and I believe met, was when we were both involved in Stargate. But we each have it means different things. We're going to write that book, hopefully, for this thing we're having is Stargate to the Cosmos, that I hope you'll be a part. But the people that I worked with off-planet, now you can say, well, that's hard to prove, and I will say, yes, sir, it is. So Janet calls it my testimony, because I can't make these people appear. But the beings I worked with on planet, they were highly, highly intelligent, extremely logical, much like Spock, but they didn't understand us, and some of them were during the war, come and go with us at different ages. Many were thousands of years old, and they worked and observed during the Hitler War, World War II. But they, one of the questions, my husband would not get into God and all of that, but finally, you just ask. I had to ask, well, what about God? My husband, they would turn off they were in another place in space. I always called it outside Andromeda Galaxy, because it was out of this one. But they were universal, coming and going from universes. And so I was able to go from level 5 out to 7 So I've done 7-dimensional travels in my own mind anyway. But these beings, and Janet wants me to talk and has been trying to get me to since 2012. I did write for UFO Digest, Stewart, about some of my travels with my husband and the connection to Roswell. But the part I want you to know is they said God has always been. That's as close as they'd get. And this group of beings that are so brilliant from universal travel, which supplied some spacecraft outside of Milky Way galaxy, but they let us come in, and we hid behind the moon and the and we would travel over behind Mars and sit there. But after I presented that, and I saw the movie Contact with you saw the after I saw that, I called Ames, and I've talked to a few astronauts, but they know, the government knows who I am, but nobody could ever put it on paper. They threatened newspaper people because I had surveillance, intelligence, reconnaissance training. So the newspaper people, if I ever tried, me and my husband tried to go one time, and they'd shut them all down, picked up all the papers. So what apparently I was doing, even though I wasn't in a level, they said it was above, way above the president, but when I was in the 3D Navy, they had German people in charge of me, and they came out and took me. One man came and took me from Lowry Air Force Base, and I'm just innocent as heck, okay? I mean, I had been an investigator in and out of country on the planet, Africa and Europe, but I didn't understand the process I was going through. So when I went underground, and they brought me from Hawaii back to the mainland to do another project, it was to work with my husband. And he and I had done some on planet type of investigations. And so he and I had come up with the consequence that there's Central Intelligence Agency on the planet and off. And the ones that we worked with, they were benevolent, but they didn't understand logically. So I'm on your storyline somehow. I've even channeled one time at night to Janet. So I knew I would meet you someday, or at least talk to you, because you and I have some connection through these beings. Now, they're benevolent, but they're so benevolent and so logical, they can tell you about the wars, but they don't understand it. They ask Tom on certain cards why they don't understand a lot about the intuition either, because what happened over time, they working with various groups out in the universes, not the low-level galaxy, okay? I don't do all that low-level stuff because I know I'm not, from there. Or, I don't say Milky Way versus Andromeda or all that, okay? But because I was relating the closest galaxy to the system was Andromeda, they put me in the Collier group. And Janet, remember one of those guys you had me on? He uses T or Telos or something with a T. He's an Andromeda person. So they were trying to classify me as an Andromeda person. But what I'm working with are beings that are way above all the galaxies. So you understand outside universal levels, right? And that they've been around like forever.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, well that's what I need to know, and I'll have to talk to you off radio to get this stuff. I'm working on that, but I need more assistance. People that work universally.
Theresa, where are you located?
Gulf Breeze, Florida, and I'm very logical, but I'm in Gulf Breeze off 98.
Now, well, I'm going to.
You can look me up.
Yeah, let Stewart tell you something. Stewart's trying to tell you something.
Please.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm going to tell you because the Gulf Breeze is a very important spot.
Thank you.
Right
I guess.
The coast of the Gulf. Yeah, but now.
Well, let me tell you how. My daughter got a picture of a UFO, and I'd never been able to. When I was an investigator, they'd never let me take a picture, but she got one, and they told it to send it to your mother in Kentucky, and I got run out by my power being cut off, even though I paid the bill, and then a tornado came through, and that's why I came down here. So now tell me why is my children live here, and they were all involved in the ET program. So why is it important?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a story.
Please.
And it took place from 1966 to 1968 in the Florida Panhandle and also involved southern Georgia and parts of Alabama. And during that time period, the government was noticing that there were many, many abductions of people from this region of the Gulf area and Alabama and so on. And so they started monitoring these things. And eventually, so I'll make a long story short, after several hundred abductions and the government watching this, the government abducted one of the abductees and hypnotized them into giving them information. And they said, the next time you're abducted, you tell these beings that we want to speak to them. And so that's exactly what happened back in 1968. The government met with a representative of these beings in Gulf Breeze area in an Air Force base. And there was a U.S. general who spoke with them. And these beings said that they represented a group that they called the Network, and that they were part of 17,000 worlds that extended from the Milky Way galaxy into the Andromeda galaxy, and that the ones who controlled them were not physical, but came from alternate or non-physical existences in other universes. And so they said the reason that they're on the Earth was because this planet was in their territory, and that humans, or the people here, were considered invaders. And so the government general said to this representative, so if we're in your territory, you will protect us from other invaders. And the answer was, yes, we will protect the Earth, but you may not be here. So that, Theresa, is why you're in Gulf Breeze. I believe, my opinion, is that you're connected to this network group, which is connected to the Andromeda galaxy, and so on. And it's, again, a complicated story, but yes, one day when I speak to you privately, I'll tell you more.
Thank you. Yes, because they'll only tell me what they want me to know, and then they'll download, but they've sent me light messages in 3D form that I don't understand. They're Egyptian hieroglyphics I remember certain ones that have to do with pi and fractals and synergy. It's a signature like a side 8. I guess we use it for infinity. And I don't know what it all means, but apparently when I need to understand, I will. But what I've been playing is doing my best to be sane and organized and work for the government and do my intelligence work, not knowing if I'm programmed or not, because a lot of people that promote the MK Ultra want to think the worst of me, and I don't agree with that because I've been conscious about all of this. But these beings were super nice, and the last time they picked me up was after my husband died, right here in Gulf Breeze, and they took me up to a huge, gigantic, long ship. I've never been on one this long. They're big, long tubes together. But they sat me down in a chair, and I couldn't tell if I was in body or out, so I referred back to the Bible when certain people would be in body or out, but they couldn't tell. So I couldn't tell, and I went up there and sat, and, of course, I talked to a man that to me would be Jesus, right? But he had hair like Obama. It was so he was sort of – it was a little speckled black and white. But next to him, and I don't know if you believe in reincarnation, but Philippe Coppens was on one of the boards, the liquid plasma boards. You can't I guess you could make this stuff up, but he was a friend of mine. But he was passed. He had passed due to pneumonia. And so I told Janet. Janet is my only confidant, unless I say it on the radio, because something just comes into me to share, like I'm sharing with you. Or I'll tell Tommy something, my other confidant. So unless somebody spurs it and I feel comfortable, I only share parts. But that's why I think we're having the Stargate to the cosmos, is to find the different people, universal or cosmically connected. So do you work – now these beings said that they found us here, so that would go with your story. It's not pro or con, but they studied us, and they asked why we do things. They didn't know. They asked me, why are you cutting the trees down when you need it for oxygen? And I'm going, I don't know. They said, well, you're an ambassador. And I'm like, okay. But they told me that when I was a young girl. Remember, I felt abandoned on the planet. And then, so my job was to be here, observe, and to be a part of, but experience life here and accept it and adopt it. I know that. But I haven't apparently been able to do much of my job. So when I was in Hawaii, I started looking at rainforest. And, my corporation, I became a president of a corporation, and I was still working for the Navy. But I looked into that, and we were cutting the trees down in South America and Brazil, all those areas. But they think we're dumb as a rock because and I get that feeling when I'm around them, in body, like, okay, I'm supposed to be this great ambassador, but I'm dumb as a rock. So it's an oxymoron being me. But, I can't explain why we're cutting the trees down. That's just one thing. So apparently, where are you getting your information about this universal? I believe you, but I'm just asking. I get downloads, so what do you get? Did they talk to you, or did somebody tell you? Did they download to you?
That's also a very big question, Theresa, because as I mentioned about my family history, I get a lot of information from intelligence services. I also get information that I learned in the Montauk Project, plus I also get information when I go outside into the higher frequencies. So all the above is where I get the information. Plus, I do a lot of extensive research. I travel into every continent, including Antarctica. I go into the different records that you cannot get on the internet or anywhere else. And I put myself kind of, my head on the chopping block by going to these places and learning these different information that you cannot get in books or internet or anything else. So I do all of this to get the information. It's not just one source.
I wanted to add something, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I am going to different planets every night, and I'm there. It's lucid. I'm interacting with the beings. At one point, I say, I've got to get back to my body. I have to pee. How do I get back home? And then something happens. I'm back there because you got to take care of the body. And so Stewart, have you encountered people like me? I'm some kind of ambassador. I've found myself in meetings with over 100,000 unique different beings. They were all bipedal with forward eyes and legs, and they said, well, we're only showing you a sample of the, there are just millions of beings in the whole cosmos, and these are only the ones that you, the Janet human avatar, are comfortable with. Otherwise, you wouldn't be comfortable, so we're showing you these. And so I gave a report of what it was like to be a human female in 21st century America, and I basically said, help, do some intervention. Anyway, have you encountered anybody that's like an ambassador and doing this type of stuff? Because I've had contact since the crib. I came in conscious, and I was saying too much to my mother, and she was trying to kill me, so they toned me down so I wouldn't say too much, so I could still be here.
Yeah, yes, of course. In my work, I come across this a lot. Now I have to qualify it here because there are some people that I come across where some of this is in mind control and programming, which comes from the virtual reality of their back alter matrix. So in order to test that, when you get these experiences, first of all, you need to use the brown merger symbol, which I have in my books, to see if it's programming or not, and use the color pale orange, which is the color of absolute truth. So when you have these experiences and you flood what you're seeing in pale orange, if it stays in the pale orange, then it's true. If the color changes, then it's probably a programming image that's being projected to you. So that's how I teach people to test their information.
Okay.
But yes, absolutely, there are many people who their soul personalities are not from here. I always said that I was like that as well. I know my history and both on this world and not on this world. And so it's each individual must find out who and what they are and what their function is, because we're coming to a point where it's very critical. And the people who know the truth and who are operating at a higher level, they're going to have to show people what's true and what's not true, what's programming and what's and so on. So we're coming to a very critical point, and I think that's why all of this now is coming out in your show, in the conference, and so on. This is a very, very important time period, and I hope that people listening will have an open mind and look at different perspectives than perhaps what they've already been used to.
Well, I know I open up every day. I learn something new every day that maybe I do or don't want to put in my 3D world, but I'm trying to do the best I can. I am doing the best I can to be a balanced human being, because I have to deal with my daughter with cancer, and they already told her she's not white, she's other, and they're trying to get rid of the cancer gene, and that was her job, mission to come to planet Earth and serve. But, you know, we're dealing with major problems, so we try to be useful with this radio show, but I don't want to bring more fear or fear porn or making people where, oh, we're scared because of what they're saying, and people already say, you know, when my daughters, she'll say, oh, my mom's got a radio show, another one, I've got 4 daughters, but you know, when people in business here, because I'm an entrepreneur and running a company here with a radio show, but then they'll say, well, what does your mama talk about on the radio? And then she doesn't know how to answer it, because I have a paranormal, extraterrestrial, my show's TJMRCT radio. So it becomes complicated after that, and I can't fix that because that's what I'm attracted to, and Janet and I are building Stargate to the Cosmos with Tommy Huxblood. So, you know, other people are working to build this. So, Stewart, what made you decide to be affirmative towards the meme or term or name Stargate to the Cosmos? We've been putting it on YouTubes and putting it on radio shows for years, but I'm just now meeting you. I guess the time is right in the airwaves. But what brought you to this?
Well, first of all, where you been, Theresa? I've been out there a long time. Janet. No, I had known Janet for umpteen years. I can't even remember how long ago it's been, Janet.
I think around 2004 or 5 we met. Yeah, it's been years. Yeah.
But I think we've been in contact before that, actually.
Yeah, we were.
So I'll tell you. You know, after all, well, I'll just say it. You know, quite honestly, I come from a family ancestry that's not so pleasant. My great uncle was a Soviet dictator. He murdered over 1 million people. My great uncle created mind control and programming in the Soviet Union. My grandfather was the one who created communism in the UK and United States. So I have a very heavy karmic burden, if you will, that I came into this world with to clear out. In addition to all of that, I was involved in the Montauk Project for 13 years and so on. And so I feel my obligation to humanity, to God, you know, to all of creation, to do what I have to do or what I should do to correct the negativity and the injustices that have been perpetrated on the people of this planet since time began. And so I also have an obligation, because of my experiences, to explain the difference between the programming and mind control aspects versus the God mind natural events and occurrences. And so time is short. We are now in what is called end-time programming, which means the Illuminati have activated all the functions related to the end times activities, which is connected to the script of the Book of Revelation, because the Book of Revelation was written by the Piso family in 300 AD under the auspices of the Illuminati to create a global empire. And so it is something that we must undo. We must tell people the truth. And, of course, we can't force it on people. All we could do is say what we know, and people can either accept it or reject it. Not everyone is going to be saved. Not everyone is going to believe. There's going to be a lot of death and destruction. And I understand, Theresa, especially what you say about the doom and gloom sayers and all of this. But you can't paint a pretty picture when there's an ugly picture out there. First, you got to get rid of the ugly picture, and then you can put the pretty picture on there. So if people don't want to hear about the doom and gloom and the terrible things that are about to happen, well, I'm very sorry about that. But when you have a clogged up, dirty toilet, you got to look at the crap in there and clean it out before you can fix the toilet. You know, that's just the way it is. So I don't make any apologies for the things that I say, because it is what it is, and we must recognize the dirt so we can see it and clean it, and then we can move forward in a more positive direction.
Well, do you feel like a lot of the past lives that we in my business I used to be a psychic reader at all the bookstores in Hawaii, on Oahu when I was there. Even though I was in the military, I did readings for people, and then I'd been doing readings, and I've just sort of stopped because it's so hard, to help other people with their stuff, and even my daughters, because these days it's so hard to know what's going on, and they want to know. And if you connect to them and read their minds or just know what they're thinking, I don't know how you would say that, or just their energy, however, because there's so many people doing that. But people want to know about their loved ones on their side, like Theresa Caputo. They compare me with her, and I'm nothing. We're none of us are exactly alike. But anyway, but you understand psychic medium work, I'm sure. But all that, do you think that's important to this reality and this cause? Because apparently the government thinks there's something to it, because I wouldn't have done anything. I wouldn't have gone out of country. I wouldn't have been an investigator. I've died a couple of times, but I put all this together myself, although I have tried to sort of thumb through, was it Sandra Brown? I had Ruth Montgomery book, and Ruth Montgomery, I wrote to her. I wrote to Leo Sprinkle, and then, who the Brown, is it Sandra Brown? Sylvia Brown?
Sylvia Brown.
Yes, I was.
Silver Brown.
Yeah,
yeah, and then Wayne Dyer. I read Wayne Dyer's stuff, things like that. But I didn't even know who you were, other than I channeled you one night, and I didn't know. And Janet knew exactly who you were, and told me about Janet and you. I don't know why that happened. I don't know why that happened. What?
Yeah, go ahead.
Come over there. Theresa.
What's that?
I don't understand.
I said, don't make me come over there.
Yes,
don't make you come over at the Gulf Breeze. It's beautiful here. It's blue water, sandy white beach. You can stay at the Best Western.
Stuart, we're actually...
Now hold on.
Go ahead. You talk, and then I'll talk. Go ahead.
No, because I'm going to tell you something about the Gulf of Mexico. It's completely polluted and contaminated with the corrosive poison that they put there after the BP oil spill. So I will strongly recommend you do not go in that water, nor should you eat any sea life that comes out of that water, because it's poison. And I'm just going to say that categorically. Unfortunately, that's the truth. They destroy.
How long has it been since that my daughter worked on the beaches, one of them? Remember, I've got 4, but Stephanie worked and got a paycheck. Well, many people had to help clean up stuff, the beach and stuff. But so I don't remember how long ago that was, but I guess I'm guided here because of my children, because my husband wanted me to live near my children when he passed over December 2nd, 2015. So I moved down here, and so I've only been here a couple of years. But I went in the ocean when I first got here, and something got on my feet and made little long strips. And so I really haven't been in there since. I went to the hospital.
Good idea.
It's like Hawaii. People in the ocean, they come here, and they go in the water. So maybe it's a positive thing if you believe you won't be hurt, you won't be. I don't know. Why do you believe in all that positive stuff? Do you believe you can control your destiny?
Yeah, let him talk.
If you're standing there and you believe you're going to be dry and I throw a bucket of water on you, whether you believe it or not, you're going to get wet. So
you think? Okay.
So if you
how far does that go?
Huh? Well, I'm just telling you that if you go in the Gulf of Mexico, you're risking your health because it is filled with a poison. And I was also going to say that they have disrupted the tectonic plate underneath the Gulf of Mexico, and I monitor the USGS on a daily basis, and there have already been significant earthquakes off the coast of the Panhandle, Louisiana, even eastern Texas, and that's going to continue until there's going to be a lot of problems. So I'm just advising you, stay away from the water there. Don't eat anything from it because it's completely toxic.
Well, what about where Janet is? They've got a volcano and earthquakes daily. And Tommy's on here right now, Janet.
Stuart's been wanting me to move out of there for a long time, but go ahead, Stuart. What about Hawaii?
So Janet knows that when I was in Maui and I did the seminar in her place, everyone was mad at me because I said, listen, people, there's going to be volcanic eruptions. It's not going to be, oh, no, it's paradise, blah, blah, blah. Well, here we are 18 years later, and everything I said is coming true. And I'm going to even tell Janet, because from Janet's window, you can see the Haleakala volcano, and that is also filling up with magma, and it's going to it's happening. What can I say?
Well, apparently the fracking didn't help. They had a geothermal plant, and they were fracking, and they had this crazy idea about. So I think there's some kind of government interference to accelerate this process, which might be natural, might have occurred, in 100 years, but this thing blew up, and it seems to be accelerated. What are your thoughts on that, Stuart? Do you have any insight?
Yes, and I can tell you that what has already come out of the Kilauea volcano, there is at least 100 times more than that waiting to come out. And as you know, there's also volcanoes forming off the coast under the Pacific Ocean. And as the lava hits the salt water, it creates a toxic chemical. And that's why people who are swimming in the water in the Hawaiian Islands are getting skin irritations, asthma, and so on. It's not a healthy place to be. But if you want to call it good news, is that the Hawaiian Islands are rising up. They're not sinking, they're rising up. Because basically, it's the center of the Lemurian continent that sank so many thousands of years ago, and now it's coming back up. So basically, it's going to be a very big landmass in a little bit. But the process is going to be a little dangerous for everybody.
Well, we've got a few minutes left. Why don't you talk? We got about 30 minutes left, 29 actually.
Okay.
Do you want to talk a little bit metaphysically or esoterically about the Akashic field and Lemuria and Atlantis? Because everyone I know, have a memory. I've even got music I wrote about being Atlantis Oracle. So check it out on YouTube, Stuart. Atlantis Oracle, that's me. And you'll hear some of my weird music with Steve Huckabee. Steve Halpern wasn't on that one, but I'm going to do something hopefully with him someday. But anyway, give us your rendition of why some of us have past lives and we're back with memories of beyond the veil, because apparently we're coming in conscious. I never questioned, because Lemuria wasn't Lemuria. That was from the lemurs. It was called Mu. So give me your idea prior to all the land splitting. It was all one big planet with one big land mass. But do you have memories before or when it split up? How do you go into that past life?
Well, and I think Janet knows this because it's in my Blue Blood book and my True World History book. Plus, I have plenty of videos on YouTube. I have like 400 videos on YouTube, and many of them are about just what you said. Now, what I'm going to tell you may not corroborate exactly with what's out there, so to speak. But I will tell you that in the very, very beginning, this planet was covered in ocean. There was no land masses. And the Earth was the
way
second
back.
planet.
It was all water. It was a water planet.
I'm going to give a lot of history in a very short time because Earth was the second position. It was a water planet. Mars and the planet Maldek was the ones that was colonized by the Lyrian refugees. The reptilians sent an ice comet into the solar system that disrupted many of the outer planets, destroyed Maldek, ripped the atmosphere off of Mars, and then went into rotation around the Earth, which polarized oceans and caused land masses to appear and the ice caps to form. And then the ice comet pushed the Earth to the third position, and the ice comet took up the second position and became the planet Venus. That's a whole nother story. But meanwhile, the Earth was then colonizable, and the reptilians drove the moon into orbit around our planet. The moon is an artificial object. It is not from our solar system. It is older than the Earth, and it is hollow just like the Earth is. Anyway, the reptilians then colonized the largest continent, which was in what is now the Pacific, and it was Lemuria, whatever you want to call it, depending on the culture. But I'm going to tell you that Lemuria was colonized by androgynous reptilian beings. They were not humans or mammalians. It was a lot of thousands of years later that the mammalians or humans colonized Atlantis, which was in what is now the Pacific Ocean. And so mammalians and reptilians are not designed to live in the same environment in the same location. And so there was wars, there was battles. This is described in the Hindu Vedas about even describing nuclear war 100,000 years ago and so on. And so ultimately, the Atlantean technology, which was able to move the morphogenetic grid of the Earth, caused Lemuria, or Mu, to sink into the upper crust of the planet, and water came flooding in and created the Pacific Basin and the Ring of Fire that exists now, and the Hawaiian Islands that exist now, and so on. And so then the Atlanteans continued on with their manipulations, and contrary to what people think, the Atlanteans were not love, light, and peace. They did hybridization experiments. They were warfaring people. They occupied Egypt and Greece, and they were very manipulative and aggressive. But ultimately, they destroyed themselves in 10,500 BC. And so what we have now on the surface of the planet are the remnants of the colonies of Atlantis and of Lemuria and of the mixture. And I should say, before all of that happened, the Lemurians and the Atlanteans tried to create a peace treaty where they said they would create a third race of a synthesis between the Lemurians and the Atlanteans. And that's why it says in Genesis, let us create man in our image. All of the Bible, especially Genesis, it's plural. There's no singular God. It's a group effort to create mankind. And the deal was that they took an androgynous reptilian body and they added mammalian characteristics to it and separated it into male and female components, which is the story of Adam and Eve allegorically. And that's why we have human beings on this planet, a reptilian brainstem, a reptilian lymphatic system. We have a mammalian heart with 4 chambers, but with reptilian 3 arteries leading into it. We have skin that wrinkles and peels and so on and so on. Human beings are basically an artificial race, which is a synthesis of reptilian and mammalian. And that is why humans on this planet have such deep psychological problems, because they have no self-identity. They don't know if they're human, if they're reptilian, if they're mammalian. They don't know who the heck they are. See? So that's really the story of mankind in a very, very short version But anyone who's interested can read my books about this and get the more detail.
Well, I mentioned in the beginning, Jesus and Emmanuel is in your description here on the show. So why do you think he was put here supernaturally into Mary, or do you think that's all BS and Jesus was just a Hebrew guy known as, Joshua or Yeshua?
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Theresa, that I do a week-long class every September. It's called the September Spectacular. And this September, I'm doing a special class just on that topic. But I'm going to tell you that I would suggest, if you can still find it, it's not available much anymore, there's a document called the Talmud of Emmanuel, which describes how alien intervention took genetics and manipulated them to create the Christ figure, who, by the way, was a twin, not a singular figure, and implanted into the womb of Mary. That's why it was called a virgin birth. It was just basically an implantation. And it gets complicated, but in ancient Hebrew belief system and information, there are twin messiahs. There's not one. There's a political Messiah and there's a religious Messiah. And the one, Emmanuel, that people worship now, he was the political Messiah, and I'm going to talk about that in my September class. But he was married to Mary Magdalene, and they had 3 children. And Mary and Peter were at odds with each other. It gets very, very complicated, but I'm just going to say it. Peter had a thing for Emmanuel, and he was jealous of Mary, and he didn't like that Jesus was married to her. And he tried to kill her, and that's why in the Last Supper painting, you see Peter with a knife trying to stab Mary Magdalene sitting next to the Christ figure. And so she had to escape.
So, was the Emmanuel bisexual? Because somebody years ago told me that that Jesus was bisexual, and I didn't believe her. But she remembered being with him, and that was years ago. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. What do we do with all these people that have memory codes? Soul coding is not DNA coding. So many people have fractals of memories. Janet is Inanna. I have the memory of Isis, but at the same time, Inanna in another language. You're not Inanna?
No.
Well, I thought you said your memory was Inanna.
No, not Inanna.
Well, what?
I identify as a fractal of Nimma, which is the peacemaker.
Nimma.
Inanna was like a little brat that she started the war back then, and that's why Sodom and Gomorrah got blown up. No, I have nothing to do with Inanna's energy, but that we're looking at the fractal experience with all these different secret space programs.
Soul coding.
Coming forward.
Yeah.
They're talking about soul coding and fractals and having archetypal memories, and that's why people are fighting. I'm Jesus. No,
well, we're
I'm
dealing
Jesus.
with it, so let's let him tell us.
Yeah, go ahead.
He surely has to deal with it.
Fractals? Is this what's going on? Go ahead.
Yeah, memory is chemically stored, and it becomes genetically induced so that you can actually inherit memory. So, Theresa, if what I understand what you said is correct, because you could have a memory, let's say, of an incident that's now become genetically stored, and then you can pass that on to your children. However, in decades and eons of time, there could be tens of thousands of people with that memory, but it wasn't their experience, you see? So there's a difference between genetic memory and soul personality memory.
Thank you. I know that. And I need clarification because everybody I talk to, no, I was with Jesus. I'm like, well, I was Jesus' daughter, so what does that mean? 12 years old, I remember putting my hand in a stone, and it went into the stone. Therefore, I could come back and find myself. And I don't have the money to go traipsing around trying to find proof that I was here on the planet. Not that I care because it's hard enough living in this 3D body. But those memories are important to some people. It keeps them from killing themselves. because they know they're more than, and they're trying to find their part. So I don't want to discourage them from trying to tell me who they were when Jesus was walking the planet, because everybody has a Jesus story. I walked with Jesus. Well, yeah, so did I, and so did everybody else I meet. It's not a new story. It's just that we let you live who you want to be.
One other thing, but I want to add one other thing to that is that the Illuminati take these inherited memories, or what they call the oversoul matrix of the personality, and all your different lifetimes and experiences, and they alter personalities in your programming matrix, which are based on them, so that they can invoke a personality or an altered personality to come forward and take control of the body based on your genetic history and memory, see, even though it may not have been your personal experience. And that's how they create programming alters. And I talk about.
Well, my husband wouldn't discuss Jesus. He was the son of a preacher man, or the son of a preacher man. But these alien ETs, I don't know what you're going to call them, the ones that we were off planet with. Me and my husband worked underground for the government, and we worked off planet. And I don't know if it was for the government. I just know that maybe it was for the extraterrestrials. I think we worked for them, and we were put here. That I believe I was them before I was me here. But maybe you can explain that. Where does the soul coding in your logical mind, or your history on the planet, do you have a Jesus story? And do you think that you may have one up there with the universal beings like I do?
Theresa, you're asking me such questions.
I want to get to know you quick. I don't have much time on the planet.
Oh, my God. Your head will explode if you get to know me so quickly. But I will tell you, in fact, it's interesting you mention that, because in the Montauk Project, and I wrote about this in my Montauk Alien Connection book, I was sent back by the handlers in Montauk to kill the Christ figure.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember that.
But I didn't do it. And so I was punished for that.
Were you Lazarus?
The second time. No.
In the history of the Bible?
No. Tell her the story, because she didn't read the book. Go ahead.
Yeah. Then they sent me back a second time to extract blood from his foot while he was on the cross, so that they used that blood to create a clone, which will be used in the second coming.
Wow. Now, who is they?
Well, the Illuminati, ultimately. That's their plan.
So you believe there's really 12 men here? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Janet. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, because we're talking about the Illuminati. I mean, you were sent back, in the Montauk chair? How did you know who was sending you back?
Well, because the handlers at Montauk, we knew who they were. They controlled us all the time and indoctrinated us and punished us and tortured us and all kinds of things. So we knew who, we didn't know ultimately who they worked for, but we knew that there were people at the Montauk base who were quite aggressive and hostile. And when they told you to jump, you jumped. Otherwise, you got punished.
So is it like the guys in X-Files? You think there's men that may be evil DNA coding or evil soul coding? Because now we're talking DNA and soul as separate entities or separate parts of us, memories. So you have a Jesus memory story. Now, and a universal, I need to hear the universal coding, but we're still talking they're separate, DNA versus soul coding.
I'm going to give you the formula. Your mind pattern is electromagnetic, and it's made up of various bandwidths of memories and ideas, etc. As this descends into physical reality, it accumulates the ambient molecules and molecular structures to form the protein bases that become your DNA. So basically, your mind pattern becomes the template for the DNA and molecular structure to form around and create your body. So basically, what you think, you physically become. You see?
So when we're dead, So when we're dead, that's not in our body, but we're out of body. And you know, all the Buddhists sit around in their pose and get arthritis and stuff sitting there, but they're really trying to go inside, right, to find their soul body or their connection to their universal source. Or we'll say God, but although they have eternity and believe they've always been, so I don't think they believe like Christians, right? And you've probably studied as many world religions as I have. So, you know what I'm saying? Wow,
yes,
that's wonderful. Yeah, so let's say that they're connected to a higher universal source just like we are. Are you saying that somewhere out there in their highest soul connection that somehow they created their own memories or they created their own DNA coding because of their biorhythms or their energy?
Their mind pattern created their DNA, which then created the body. So, yes, your experience, your thinking, your emotions makes or creates the template for your DNA, which then becomes the blueprint for your body. So, yes, you are what you think, basically. And, you know, as far as going inside, you know, everyone comes from the same source. You know, everyone, there's only one God, and it has many emanations. And so ultimately, we all connect to the same thing.
So on one level, everybody is God, acting themselves out for what purpose other than in psychology, we study ego and id, and we can't seem to live with our ego, but everybody bitches about each other's ego. That's just your ego talking. You just want to be a speaker. You just want to be a book author. You get what I'm saying. Or you just want to be on radio. Mm-hmm. So how do we combat that? We think we're doing what we're supposed to be doing on some higher level, okay?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, it's very interesting because in my Healer's Handbook, if you've seen that book, I have the formula for you to do your name analysis. Because when you're born, your birth name is a statement of why you came into this reality. And so one of the works that I do, besides the health work and the readings of energy and so on, I also do name analysis so that I can look at the frequency of each person's birth name and tell them why they came into this life. See?
That's a cool thing. Did you come up with it, or you just studied all the stuff that I've studied a lot of that stuff in bookstores? But you know, it's fun, but it's just a tool like numerology. Of course, you know, Tesla believed in the number 3, right? So everything had to be 3. So who's to say? Einstein promoted the imagination. And so everything comes from something, right? But where do you get, because these are fun little things to do, folks. My name's Theresa Thera, and I'm really big into Antica Thera, and that Atlantis was every place, not just one place.
What was your birth name, TJ? What's your birth name? That's what we're
Teresa.
talking about. I
didn't make it up.
Your full birth name. The
Christian Theresa Jeanette Thurmond. Thurmond, and it used to be Thurman, and before that it was Thurber, and I came in under Thor's protection, but I came in, and the Indians laugh at me because I believe Zeus was my father. Zeus. Well, so I have a godfather and an L god, but I also was Tara L, so I have an L god DNA too, or I don't know what Stuart would call it.
Stuart, what do you get about
with an H?
Theresa Jeanette Thurman as her birth name? Because this is your birth name. What do you get from that?
It was a sign.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know, it's going to take a bit of time to go through that whole name, but I can tell you just on the surface that you're a very balanced person. You're also very stubborn. And you do have a magnetic personality. You're very creative, but you also have a single set of DNA instructions that are opened at any given time, which means, Theresa, you really should not be a multitask person. You should just do one thing at a time, finish it, and then move on to the next thing. You also have the potential for Kundalini activation in this life, which I think already happened. You know?
Oh, yeah, a long time ago. It happened, then I had to go find colors to match. But I've been teaching that since the 80s, just so you know. I was initiated into the mystery schools when I was a young girl, off planet, not on this planet.
Where were you born?
Off planet? Oh, you mean a human? My 3D world? Yeah. 12/26/51. I was born at noon in Monroe, Louisiana. That gives everybody my astrology. Monroe, Louisiana. I had great schooling. I was on television. I was on KNOE, Channel 8, Channel 10, being pretty
so what does that mean?
Singing.
Stuart, what does that mean where she was born?
No, where she was born. Well, first of all, quite honestly, you did not match the area or the energy where you were born. You really should, and this goes for you too, Janet, because both of you should be living in a cooler climate. You should both never be living in a hot or humid environment. So
we both do.
Yeah, I know, and that you really should be living.
I don't like the cold.
I don't either. It makes my bones hurt.
Yeah.
We both have allergies. We both have allergies.
Yeah. What makes you say that we need to move it into or be in a colder climate? Go ahead. What's your logic, Stuart? Go ahead.
I look at your birth energies. I look at your genetic frequencies, and you're kind of like a pine tree growing in the desert. It's not gonna, you could survive, but you're not going to really blossom the way you could if you were to live someplace where it matches your frequency. You both need to live in a cooler. See, Janet, where you were born, you matched that area. Fit you. And but where you were born, Theresa, does not match, and where you live doesn't match you.
Well, we had winter in Monroe, but I didn't like it. We had Monroe, Louisiana. We had winter. I lived right next on the Ouachita River. I used to have terrible nightmares about drowning in it because so many times the Ouachita would flood, and my dad was part of the Army National Guard, and we'd have to go watch him putting sandbags on it. But that was terrible memories as a kid. But I pretty much got over all that because I did all my inner work, and then I was, I moved to Hawaii and did government work. But I've had a lot of in-house training, and even the government and the Navy paid for. I went to Toastmasters, and I met Wayne Dyer at a Mensa meeting I went to, Mensa stuff, and I've had a brilliant childhood. I grew up we moved to Houston, but let's talk about where you're in Michigan, right? But you can't afford to take care of all the Janets. All right, well, your wife's name's Janet, my name's Janet, Janet's name's Janet. What are you doing with all these Janets, Mr. Swerdlow?
Janets.
I collect Janets. What can I tell you?
I see that.
And what's also very interesting is that the airline that flies the scientists from Las Vegas to Area 51 is called Janet Airlines.
I know that. I've been on that. Janet hasn't, but I have. I played that game. I played that game many times. So I asked Janet if we were doing Janet Airlines at the Stargate. But S4, and then now Dugway. But I was driving a truck coast to coast and watching all that built out there in the mountains. Been inside the mountains over many places as a truck driver, but before that I worked underground. But we had yesterday talking to, do you know the alienologist, first guy, alien hunter? Do you know Daryl Sims? He said he didn't know you, like I didn't know you. We don't know you. But he just went to Dulce Commerce.
I hate to interrupt you, but you've got like 3 minutes, and we're going to be done with the show.
Okay, we got to say. All right, well, do you know Dulce? I mean, do you know Daryl Sims at all? He lives in Houston.
No, I don't know him.
No.
Okay, well, so there's a lot of people we haven't met, so we're going to pull everybody together, hopefully. Well, folks, it's been wonderful. This is, we could talk to him forever, but please read his books. I'm all about authors and our ACO club for authors.
Stuart, tell everybody how to reach you. What's your website and everything? Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. My website is expansions.com, and on there we have our blogs, our podcasts, our books, videos, my schedule where I'm going to be in the world, and all the information that you need to learn is going to be there. Health information, archetype healing, and so on. It's all on there. Expansions.com. Also, 5 Facebook pages that you can look me up, and my wife Janet as well, and Expansion's Facebook page as well. And really consider coming to the September Spectacular. It's going to be a week that you'll never forget. It's going to be quite amazing.
Where's that? That's in September, Michigan, right? You still live in Michigan?
September 10th to 14th, yes.
Okay, I knew of your energy through Marla Thomas and Mary Sutherland up there, because Mary Sutherland and Marta Thomas, they had the Marta had the Pyramid Conference up in Chicago, and they're having it again this year, 2018. You may want to get in touch with Marta. So I sort of knew your name through Marta. She asked me a couple of years ago when we were promoting that. So we should get involved so we can help you promote that stuff. And do you do your webmastering, or does your wife? Because I'd like you to put your autobiography or your biography on your Amazon page where it says author. And it's real easy. If you go under it, hit your books on Amazon, and on the left-hand side, it'll ask you if you're an author. And then you can put it up there. And nowadays, you can put your website on there. Amazon's gotten where they really promote you a lot better these days, Stewart. So they just started doing that.
My webmaster is actually in South Africa. So we don't do that ourselves, but I will certainly let her know to do that.
Okay,
good.
Please. And
hey,
that's wonderful.
TJ, we're out of time.
Yeah, we're going to be out of time now. So, well, Stewart, do you want to come back sometime?
I'd love to.
Oh, good.
All right.
We'd love to talk to you again.
And then if you want to, we'll have you on another night, too, if you'd like to. But I appreciate all that you shared with us, and I'm sure people will get a lot out of it. And Janet's got some other shows, and she's going to be bringing on other people that she knows on Stargate. And I'm just meeting all these people. I don't know who any of them are unless she brings them on my show. So it was nice meeting you. And so I guess Janet wanted us to meet, and she can tell you later on what's going on. But, hey, will you look me up, Theresa J. Morris online and TJ Morris ET Radio, and I'm trying to grab your pictures and put them on this show. All right?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Stewart.
Try to have you back. Thank you, Stewart. It was very enjoyable. Thank you, everybody, and I'm looking for the button to turn us off, which I can't find right now. Great. All right, I got so excited having Stewart on. But, Janet, you did good. He's as smart and as logical as we are, so, or at least I like to think so.
I did.
So that was a good thing. Yeah, so I'm looking for it to turn it off. So Stewart Swerdlow, expansions.com. And so please go to his gathering in September, and then Janet's doing her best to get us all to fly over to the place called Albuquerque, New Mexico, of all places. A bunch of us got together and decided that's where we could all meet. But it's sort of closer to him than it is me. Albuquerque at the MCM Elegante Hotel. Beautiful place. I'm so excited. It's so beautiful, and it's so inexpensive. And I've already got me a room next door for even cheaper, $44 at the Days Inn. So there's plenty of hotels if you don't get one. And that's really inexpensive for an event. It's only like $89 with her discount. They're giving you guys a discount.
It's $79.
Cheaper?
You gotta use the link on my website, $79. Yeah. So go through
well, tell them the name of your link.
StargateToTheCosmos.org. Actually, Com will take you there too, but Stargate to the Cosmos. Okay, TJ, come on, do the music. I got to go do something else.
I'm trying. Well, go on. You can hang up. It's okay. You don't have to stay connected, folks.
I'm going to hang up.
It'll still be on the recording.
Bye.
Folks, you'll find this on Spreaker. Yeah, you'll find this on Spreaker, and you'll find it on YouTube. And, we love everybody. So thank you. And we're going to be back here Sunday with Tommy Hawk's Blood and Me for our universal life. And we'll talk some more about our soul consciousness and what we're talking about, DNA encoding versus your soul coding. And we didn't get as deep as I'd like to today, but I'm really, really happy that we did. But let me just bring Tommy on here if I can. It won't let me. Dang it. Well, Tommy, yeah. Hey, Tommy, can you hear me?
I'll call you right back. Yeah, I'll call
all right,
you right back.
Tommy, you're on. If you want to leave a message right here, it's still recording. So you want to leave a message?
No, that's right.
Just tell everybody about Sunday. All right, love and light, everybody, and thank you. And we will be back on Sunday.
Your Hawaii Ford dealer's 4th of July sell-a-thon is going on now. Choose from a great selection of our most popular Ford models. This sell-a-thon has something for everyone. Great lease offers, big savings on F-150, and trade-in bonus offers in addition to all current incentives. Click or tap our ad to learn more. These deals are too good to last. All offers absolutely end July 9th. So visit your Hawaii Ford dealer right away.
Aloha, this is Stephanie from Safeway. Others may say they carry quality beef, but for us, the only choice is USDA Choice. Marbled to perfection so the instant it hits your mouth, you know you're eating the most tender, juicy beef. This 4th of July, celebrate with USDA Choice boneless beef top sirloin steak, tri-tip roast, and London broil. Buy one, get one free with your club card. So fire up the grill and invite your neighbors. This is Stephanie from Safeway. Happy 4th.
Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.